Welcome to the Love Fly podcast. It's Paul Tizard here, fearofflying coach. And today's episode is to answer the question, I've got a flight tomorrow. I've just found the website, or maybe I have been doing some of your stuff, but I'm just having a last minute panic. What can you do to help me? As this was Geeta's idea, she is our first guest. So welcome, Geeta.
Thank you. Happy to be here as always.
So Geeta said, why don't you and Susan, as in me, just come up with this thing? Because there's a lot of people who post in the group saying, oh crap, I've got a flight tomorrow and just found the site, or I haven't done any of the stuff. What can I do? Any top tips? And so I thought I might just open it. So this is what we're going to call part one. So grabbed a bunch of people and said, right, if you had 10, 15 minutes to say top tips or your advice, what would it be? And then obviously anyone listening to this thinks, we haven't said my top tip. Please email me, paul@lovefly.co.uk, paul@lovefly.co.uk, and you'll be on part two. So this is part one, kicking off with Geeta.
Woohoo! Wow, I'm kicking the whole thing off. This is
your idea. So but I thought, why are you asking me? You give so much advice in the group. What the hell do I know? So this is your chance.
Wow. I forgot that it was even my idea.
Yeah, it's your idea. And also you spend a lot of your time doing exactly this. So I was thinking
maybe that's why I was typing the same things over and over again. I was like, perhaps we could put this in a place where it's a resource for people.
I think it's a great idea. So let's have some Geeta wisdom then.
Geeta wisdom. So no pressure on that one. Thanks, Paul. Always with the song.
You will be the start of the episode, so no pressure at all.
Don't mess it up. Yeah, I think this is good for people who haven't done a thing. But also, I've noticed there's a lot of people who do all of the things and they're so prepared. And then they get to like the day or two before and it's like meltdown city and they get like totally thrown off balance. Or you do great on the flight to your destination, but then 2 days before you're supposed to fly home, all of a sudden you're a mess again. So we see these patterns happening again and again. So I think this kind of chat goes for any of those situations.
Nice. Yeah, that's good actually, because I'd forgotten about that. Because because some people who have done the 30-day program, exactly that, they storm the flight and then they come back and they go, oh, it's all gone, or they have that last minute wobble. No, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I speak from experience. So I actually did take some notes because otherwise I'll just talk for 5 hours since I love aviation. So I thought I would just start just a tiny like personal anecdote and then do a little bit of just overall mindset thinking. Because I'm a teacher, so I always like to put things in a frame, tell you what I'm going to tell you and then tell it to you. So I'll give you a little personal story and then just give a mindset frame for sort of what's been useful for me to shift it. And then specific things of what to do in the moment. I think I have 3 or 4 and then like a bunch of just overall strategies after that. So I'm going to sort of start big picture and then drill down to strategies.
Settle in, everyone. Here we go.
And away we go. Yeah. So first thing, I'm assuming if you're listening to this episode, you're probably in a mini meltdown or freaking out right now. So, or maybe not, maybe you're trying to prevent that. But I can say from the bottom of my heart that I totally understand you because I've been there. I have been that person who was like laying in bed 3 nights before a flight on my computer looking up fear of flying resources, how to cope with fear of flying, what to do if you have a panic attack on an airplane. Instead of sleeping, this is the stuff I was looking up. I waited until like 2 days before a flight to go, I think I have a problem. I should do something about it. And that was a little bit too late to help, but it did help. I don't want to not give hope, but I realized then it was going to be a much bigger process and probably take a couple of months. So I did find some things that helped me get through that initial flight, which I will talk about towards the end. All hope is not lost. If it's a couple of days before, of course you can shift it. But I've been there and I know how Oh, just how awful it feels, how you feel it in your body. You feel the
Mm,
panic, the fear, the certainty that you're going to die, the certainty that it's your fault. Even though you know it's not true, it feels true. So I've just been there. I've been that person who had a good flight going to a place, and then on the way home, the night before, it was slept in the
yes.
airport hotel and did not sleep the whole entire night. It was just a ball of panic. You can listen back to probably episode 1 with Geeta for that deeper dive into my dark night of the soul at the Denver airport. But I've been there. I have so been there. So anything I'm telling you now is just come from my own personal experience, from everything that Mr. Paul Tizard has taught me, along with
I can't take all that
Susan. And
credit. Don't blame me. Sorry,
well,
Captain Ron says, don't blame us for your
yes.
success. I know Ron
Yes,
was part of
Captain
that as
Ron
well.
helped me a
Yeah,
lot. Yeah,
yeah.
thank you. Captain Ron helped tremendously, as did Susan and Pete. Pete really helped a lot too, just his unrelenting enthusiasm for flight.
Mm,
But this is all just coming from a place of just, I have compassion for you wherever you are. I understand. And please know that you're not alone. And I wish that I had been brave enough to reach out for this help before I got to the stage I was in. So if you're already reaching out for help, you're ahead of where I was. So bravissimo for that one. So let's go to mindset then. So I think in our society in general, this is going to get way philosophical, but that's how I roll. We tend to avoid discomfort big time,
yes.
right? Like we're just so discomfort averse. We think that being uncomfortable is bad. And so in our ordinary everyday lives, most of us are very privileged to have comfort, electricity, running water, choices of food, choices of entertainment, choices of what clothing we're going to wear that day. We just have so much that protects us from feeling uncomfortable, that when the slightest bit of discomfort comes along, we want to shove it away and sort of get rid of it and not recognize it, that it's an opportunity for us to grow and develop, and that it's normal and natural. So if you're experiencing that big, then extreme spike of being uncomfortable, then, the nervous system goes into overdrive and we literally can feel like we're going to die on that plane.
Yeah.
So it really helped me to sort of think of it more like a performer or an athlete. Way back in the archives of Geeta, I was an athlete, but I am more recently a musician. And we look at performance nerves as totally normal.
Mm,
Right? Or you think of like any soccer player the night before like the World Cup final. They're probably not like super zen and chill. Like there's probably some nerves and butterflies, right?
yes.
Like
Yeah, yeah.
in the moment before you go on stage, we have very famous singers who before they go on stage, they're a wreck. I mean, they vomit, they're shaking, even though it's what they've chosen to do and they love it. But they know that that's just a temporary state and that it's normal to feel that nervous and anxious. So that nerves is an indication for me that there's this extra outside pressure that's asking me to grow. It's a growth mindset stuff. You did positive psychology, right, Paul?
I did, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Isn't that a thing? Like the growth mindset,
Yes.
like the nerves, it's not something that's just discomfort to be pushed away, but it's actually asking you to grow and develop your potential for withstanding challenges. So think of yourself like a boss, right? Like you're a superstar. You might not be Lady Gaga getting on the stage, or you're going to go play in the World Cup final, but you're doing your World Cup final or your big performance, which is to go to the airport and get on the plane and stay on the plane, So if you're thinking of it that way, of like, it's that in music, we use those nerves and we think of channeling them into the performance, take them and like direct them towards something more useful. So I'll get to some of those strategies in a minute of how to direct it, but that sort of helps me to think about it when I feel nerves and I feel flutters. And, I'm in flight school now. I'm learning how to fly planes and I still get nervous and I think, oh, that's good. That means I care, and that means I'm growing, and that means that something really good is going to happen here. So sort of normalizing the nerves is good. Another
Just want to say, I
mindset.
love this. I
Yeah.
love loving this. This is great.
Loving this. Um, it is what you're doing right now is difficult, but it's not impossible. Is I think I've had a number of people message me and they're at that moment of thinking about canceling. If you're thinking about canceling, I'm looking at you. I'm speaking directly to you if you're about to cancel that flight. Going to the airport and taking this flight is going to be difficult for you. It's going to be. It's not going to be easy, but it's not impossible. It's just difficult. So difficult, not impossible can be a thing you can put in your brain.
This could change. This, we've got uncomfortable, not dangerous with turbulence. We've now
Right.
got a new maxim.
Difficult, not impossible. Or difficult, but not impossible.
Yeah.
So that's just, and so if you're at that moment when you're thinking of canceling, if you're thinking of canceling, two things. Number one, of course you can. There's always an exit ramp. Like you, of course you can cancel. Like give yourself that freedom. Yes, I absolutely could if I want to. Of course. No one's going to think any less of you. No one at Lovefly is going to judge you. It's great. Cancel away. Cancel and move on. Like that's it. Don't have to make such a big deal about it, But do know that maybe have a strategy then if you're going to cancel and say, okay, before I even cancel, I'm going to book a one-on-one with Paul, or I'm going to book a one-on-one with Captain Ron I forget his company. Look up Captain Ron. He's got a whole thing. Or I'm going to get the Simplify app from Alon. Or, I'm going to buy another book, or I'm going to book a EasyJet has a course. Like do something else immediately before you book to set up your future growth. Because if you don't, you run the risk of what I've seen happen with a few people. They cancel and then they go into the shame spiral.
Yes.
And then it becomes 20 years before you ever fly again. So you're avoiding that temporary discomfort and creating a really long-term gnarly mess. So cancel, but before you cancel, set up something so that you can use it as a springboard towards growth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then you can cancel and just be like, it's not the right time, but I will do it, and here's how I'm going to do it. So you're canceling it, but in a different way. Does that make sense?
We like that. Yeah, it's great.
We like that. Paul likes it. Okay, good. Last little thing on mindset. Thank you for validating me.
You're not even needed it, but yeah, that's great. That's a really smart. That is very smart because it can completely right that people, when they cancel, they go into this massive shame spiral, as you called it. And
yeah,
I like that idea to sort of have something planned so that it's not just like that's it, because it's so easy just to then hide, isn't it, afterwards? So I love that. That's really good. Anyway, don't let me interrupt your flow. This is great.
No, I love chatting with you. Last little thing on mindset before I get to specific techniques. The reason why I'm spending time on mindset is because I don't think there's any shortcuts. Some folks might pull up this episode because they're looking for just that thing to help me get through the flight. And you might find some temporary things to help minimize discomfort. But you've said it before too, right? There's no shortcuts. You kind of have to get into it and work on this for a long time in small little dribbles to really make a substantive change. So there's no shortcut. So that's why I'm spending time on mindset. So don't fast forward through this. Okay, so if you have Gita will know. So if you are freaking out, say you're even at the airport freaking out, you're listening to this in the security line, look at the power of your mind for a second. This is what really helped me when I was sitting there in that Denver airport, catastrophizing and imagining just the worst, most horrible things happening over and over again. I was like, my God, look at what my mind is creating. My mind has none of this is happening. In this moment, I am in a really nice hotel room, and ridiculously expensive because it's so convenient to the airport. But my mind is literally creating a catastrophe. It's not actually even happening. So much so that it has me considering booking a train ticket to get all the way across the United States of America back to Boston and not going on this flight in the morning. And I was like, look at the power of my mind. Look at what it created. What if I take the power of my mind and give a chance to see myself differently? if I take that power and I use it in a different way? I was like, oh, right, duh. I can do that. But if you doubt how powerful you are because you feel powerless, you feel like you're going to get on that plane, you don't have power and you're strapped in and you can't get off and all of those things we feel, that's just thoughts that you're creating. You can create other thoughts that give you your power back. So you're much more powerful than you're giving yourself credit for. So stop it and get on with being awesome. Okay.
There you go. There's some teacher gold. We like that. Good.
Okay. So what to do, how to actually, put this into action. Cause like theory, philosophy is great, but unless you actually do something, it's just meaningless. So one thing that really helped me when I was in the worst moments and felt like I was moments away from telling my husband, so I'm going to take the train home. And this is, I was like moments away from like doing that. I started doing a thing that I did once when I was in a profound grief. I had lost someone that I loved, and it was that kind of grief that just, you feel like you can't even feed yourself. You're just completely traumatized, in shock. That's the word I was looking for. So, and one of my friends does this as well, I found out later. And we call it like narrating the steps technique. So it was literally like, I may have talked about this before on the podcast, where like, it's too overwhelming to think of all the things you have to do to get on the plane. So I would be like, okay, next you have to sit up in bed. I would literally say that out loud to myself and then sit up. Next, you have to put your feet on the ground. And then I put my feet on the ground. Next, you have to stand up. And then I'd stand up. Okay, now you just have to walk to the door. That's all you have to do. And I'd walk to the door. And I literally had to narrate almost my whole morning that way when I was going through this grief, to just do activities of daily living. But I have found it helpful in moments of extreme anxiety as well. Because for me, I don't know if you guys are like this, but I get in the what if, and I start thinking all the things. There's the security, and then there's a little tunnel thing. And what if I lose the bag? And what if they can't, they don't have my seat? And what if I have to sit in the, like, mine just starts going instead, just literally narrating what I'm doing in the moment and telling myself the sentence and then doing it and drilling it down to the smallest possible step, so that I'm just literally standing up and then I'm walking. That really helped me to get through those challenging moments. It sounds a little kooky, and I'm honestly a little embarrassed that I have to do that sometimes, but I think that's living with anxiety is kind of like that sometimes. You have to just kind of be like your own mom.
I think it's eminently sensible, because everything else is imagined anyway. The future hasn't happened yet. So if you're just dealing with the now, then that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. And somehow for me, then narrating it out, saying it, like coaching myself through it again, like almost like I'm my own mother, like, stand up, honey. Good job. Put your hand on the door. Well done. And each time giving myself a little, like, you're doing it. Like, this is hard, but you're doing it. Really helps. Another technique in the moment is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Do you know this one, Paul? You probably know it from mindfulness. Well, I think I'm probably going to get it wrong, which is sort of why I'm asking you, because I read it and then I sort of adapted it to myself. And then my therapist told me some things about it. So y'all might have your own 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. I'm just going to tell you mine because I don't know if there's a golden way to do it.
I don't know if it matters. No.
Okay, cool. And I'm not sure, like, if someone, I really like to trace origin of techniques, and give proper attribution. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Credit where credit is due. So anywho, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is a technique of bringing yourself into the moment. It's just another momentary technique. And this is one I'll do sometimes if I was in the boarding area or something like that. Or especially for me in the middle of the night, and I wake up with that like middle of the night doom, which is how my anxiety will manifest. 2 a.m. panic thoughts. That's just been a pattern for me since 4th grade. So thanks genetics for that one. So this is what I do to just stop that spiral. So I will list 5 things that I can see, 4 things that I can feel, tactile with touch, or 3 things I can hear, 2 things I can smell. It's supposed to be 1 thing you can taste, but this one comes from my therapist. She has me list one thing that I like about myself. I love that one. It's so good because taste is kind of like very, hopefully there's not always a taste in your mouth, like it's, I don't know, it can be tough. So, and I try to be more specific as I've gotten better at it. I'm a writer, so I like to be specific. 5 things I can see, like, I can see the powder blue wall, like be very specific. I can see the Victorian sconce that I bought, in 1987, is switched on, like be really specific. So I'm really paying attention.
Yeah.
But sometimes in the moments when I'm really close to a panic attack or something like that, it's just, I see blue, I see a white cloud, I see Paul's face, like just really simple. That one really helps. Is that similar to the one
I think I did some mindfulness training. I've forgotten half of it because because
you're just so naturally mindful.
No, I don't think that's the case. I think there's a couple of things that have stayed with me, and then the rest have just gone because they perish if you don't use them, don't they?
Yeah. Well, I think with all those trainings, I think we keep what works, and then we just let the rest go.
But we like your 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 version. That's great.
Yeah, I found that to be pretty helpful. And another one is the classic one that you perhaps have a podcast on, which is a breathing technique. Shall we do one right now? Deep breath in. And out. Yeah, deep breaths have, quite literally saved my life. I think I talked about these in the first podcast I was on, but that's my go-to strategy. And I think you do, is that episode 44?
It is, yes.
And you do a beautiful job teaching that. It's like inhaling for a count, holding for a count, and exhaling for a count. It's just
I've never listened to it.
It's really good. It's really good. And I think the counting is helpful.
She said, she said that thing you did at the end of your audio book, you should release it. I went, really? It's like, so I wouldn't listen to myself. That would be too cringy. But thank you for the words. I was just trying to keep it pretty basic, just accounting. For some people, it's too much. It's just to be aware of their breath is about all they can manage. But I like the counting because it gives you something to do.
I like the counting. I find when I'm doing, my yoga practice or in a typical day, I don't need to count because I can just sort of drop in and take these big expansive breaths and away we go. Also being a clarinetist, it's like breath is our life. But when I'm in a moment of anxiety, I need that counting to anchor me.
Yes.
I find the counting helpful. So I hear Paul's voice in that moment. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Eduardo described it as the voice of Xanax.
Yes, totally. It's awesome.
It's a compliment.
I would agree with that. Okay, so those are my sort of like in the moment when I'm in that like tipping point of like making a bad decision,
Yeah.
And then I'm just going to throw out a bunch of overall strategies at you guys and just kind of see. This is less, specific momentary techniques, but more just stuff in general that can kind of buoy you. One really random thing, but it's watching sitcoms. I find really helpful, like laughter.
Yes.
Because it breaks open the logjam. It naturally gets your diaphragm muscle, which is part of how you breathe, moving, which helps then your breathing. It's like a natural breathing exercise, and it just breaks up that logjam of thought, especially if it's a sitcom that you've watched before in good times and you have a good association with. Like I've been going back through Seinfeld again and just, oh man, it's just humans. We're so awkward and cringy. Like it's just nice to laugh about it. It just makes everything better. Another overall strategy, especially a couple of days before, get your buns outside, like go outside into nature. Even if you live in a city, go to a park, go stand by a tree. Our bodies really respond well to sunlight, to fresh oxygen. Your body will naturally know how to find more regulation if you engage with the natural world. it's just, I don't have to cite all the studies to prove that, but it's such a simple thing, but we often overlook it when we're in like that anxiety, getting ready for a trip mode. Like, go for a walk, go outside. Another general strategy, which really gets overlooked, love fly peeps, I am looking at you. Would you please, for the love of God, eat and drink the 2 days before a flight? Can I get an amen, Paul?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Absolutely right.
So many people like message me or they're in the comments and they're like, they're not eating and they're maybe hydrating, but if you're only drinking a little bit of water, my suggestion, what helped me was to put electrolytes in the water. That really helped because if I was feeling very nervous and anxious and not like eating, or I know even if I'm eating, I'm not digesting well because I feel so uncomfortable. And my stress, hormones are flying, that drinking a small quantity of water that has electrolytes then can help manage the systems of your body so they function more harmoniously and as they're supposed to. And that can then in turn help that natural homeostasis, just moving towards balance of the body, which then in turn helps your mind to feel better. Electrolytes can really, really help. And bringing them on the plane as well can help because it's just so darn dry. And you might not even realize, you say, I'm too nervous to eat. Part of the reason you don't feel like eating is because you're not eating and drinking. Like you're kind of shutting off your body's natural process. So even if you don't feel like it, do it anyway, because then you'll be like, oh, I feel a little better. And then you're creating a new pattern. So please don't get on the plane fasted and dehydrated.
No, thank you.
Yeah. I always tell people, if you were here, I'd make you a cup of tea. There's more. There's a couple more. I have, I think, 3 or 4 more, and they're quick. Okay. So this one falls under the performance thing, acting like, you're a performer or you're a top athlete. Like, just act as if you've got it. Like, dress well. You can be comfy on the plane, but I like to wear something that looks nice. I put on makeup. I smile at people. I make eye contact. I fake like I'm not, back then I would fake like I wasn't a nervous passenger and just kind of like I was almost on stage. And then when I needed help, I would ask for it. I've had to ask people for help on board before, but otherwise just kind of treat it like you're honoring yourself in the event rather than slogging through it. Nice. The other thing, what's the other? I have one more tip. Where is it? Oh, I think Paul will approve of this one. Limit your social media, except for Lovefly. Limit your use of turbulence apps and limit your use of looking at the weather. And even stop checking to see if the flight you're on is landing successfully for weeks before you take it. Because then one little thing you see that's abnormal and then you're off to the races again. So what would happen if you just didn't do any of that?
No, I do. I massively approve of that one.
Yeah,
because I was corrected.
I learned it from you.
Yeah, Alon corrected me because I said, they're all nonsense. He said, no, they're not. They're not nonsense. He said, but you don't know how to read them. So it's like a doctor handing you a scan, and then you go, I don't really know what I'm looking at, and it's the same thing, So if you can't read it, all you'll see is the bad bits and not actually have any context for it.
Correct.
That's a good way to think about it. But I still maintain it. Don't bloody look at them. Not going to help.
Yeah.
What are you going to do anyway? You check the weather and go, oh, weather's bad. Should I phone the pilot and let him know or her know? What are you going to do? You can't do anything. You're either going or you're not. That's it.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, I love that.
Yeah. It's trying to soothe yourself with something that's not going to soothe you. So do other things. Eat well, dance, listen to music, do nice things for yourself. So last little one I have is one thing that I think I ended up writing to someone who was himself a general aviation pilot, but he was afraid to fly commercially. And it was a little bit of that like loss of control thing. And so I talked to him a little bit about like that as passengers, we actually have a responsibility on board the aircraft. I mean, you're former crew, right? You know that. Like, we tend to think like, I know I used to think this way and now I see that I was wrong. You get on board and you don't have any power. You can't get off, you can't move. You lose all of your power. I mean, you're trapped is sort of how we view it. But you actually have a very serious, I think, responsibility when you're a passenger. Maybe it's because I'm a student pilot and I'm learning how to brief passengers. And especially in a small 2 or 4 seater plane like I'm flying, it's really important that the passengers behave well, because it can be really serious if they don't. But on board commercial aircraft, we need to be calm on board. Like, it's a responsibility. Like, okay, if you have a panic attack, they'll take care of you. But we need people that are calm, alert, that listen to the flight attendants, that actually review the safety card. Why don't people do that? Like, they're telling you for a reason, not because it's like, oh, whatever, it's just something we have to do. Like, it's in case you need to, you want to know what to do. Like, so locate the exits, notice who's around you. And some of those people might need actually assistance, just getting their baggage in or helping with their kid, or they might be more nervous than you are. So you have power and agency and responsibility as a passenger. So kind of like own that with a little pride and get on board that aircraft like someone who is going to help with the safe and relaxed and joyful experience of the flight for everyone around you, because it's kind of part of your job. That's why the safety card is there and they do the safety briefing. It's not just because they have to. So you have power on board. So use it. People, if you ever want to fly with me, I'm going to do a big safety brief.
That's great.
Last little bit.
Yeah, nice. Very good.
Okay, last little bit. Know that even as you're walking through these challenging moments, that you might not feel super successful right now. You might feel horrible getting on board. You might be crying and all of that. But know, even though in the moment you're feeling a little bit like you're losing it, that you are doing a great job and that you're building towards a future where this is something that you perhaps even enjoy doing it. Like, understand that where you are now is not necessarily where you're going to be. And by walking through this now, it's the stepping stone towards a year or even 2 weeks from now, getting on board and being like, oh yeah, no big deal. This is awesome. I got this. So just know that you're in a building process. And if you feel nervous and uncomfortable, that's good because it means you're growing. So be your own best friend. Get on board that aircraft, be responsible for your behavior, and know that you've got this. And no matter what you do, we're all going to love you anyway. So be a hot mess or not, but Love Fly's still got your back. Geet out.
Drop the mic. Fantastic. Oh, that's really
what
good.
I got.
There was tons and tons of wisdom there. And maybe it's going to be this is part one, and there'll be another part two, and then another part three. But this is brilliant. So
it was supposed to be 15 minutes, and I went on a little long. You know what you get when you ask me to talk. Look out.
Good, really good, well thought through, really helpful, structured, just brilliant. Wisdom with a bit of, I don't know, I don't know how to sum you up, but it's just fabulous.
Thank you. I hope from the bottom of my heart that it helps someone just through a challenging moment. Because like I said, I've been there and I know how embarrassing and scary and sad and just, it's just so challenging. And I know the joy that's on the other side of that. So if I can be part of that, just being, we're all in this together, just part of that, just walking through this life together, that's what gives me joy. So it's my pleasure.
Oh, Geeta, amazing. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
You're welcome. Go on Sunday. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Oh, amazing. Absolutely amazing. As always, brilliant stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
So welcome back to Jamie Fraser, and we're continuing the question of, oh crap, I've got a flight tomorrow or the next day. I've just found the group. Don't know what to do. What's your top tip? So Jamie has been on the podcast before. You may remember him, but Jamie's a prolific writer in the Love Fly group. So, Jamie, what would you recommend?
I'd say it depends precisely how many hours you've got until the flight. If you've got 24 hours or 48 hours, then I'd get myself acquainted with as much as I can on the Love Fly website. I'd listen to as many podcasts as I possibly can. If you're really short notice, if your boss has just rung and said, right, you're going to Edinburgh in a couple of hours, then I think the best thing you can do is really kind of knuckle down on the relaxation and the breathing techniques, because it's physically impossible to be in a state of panic and relaxation simultaneously. So if you can breathe properly through the breathing techniques that Love Fly have taught, and keep yourself as calm as possible. I know this may be very difficult for some people to do, but if you can keep yourself as calm as possible and just keep putting one foot in front of the other and going about what you need to do to get to the plane and deal with the business, then you will win half the battle. So keep calm and breathe deeply is the first thing I would say.
Okay.
I would keep sipping water, because a dry mouth is one of the symptoms of fear and panic. So if you sip water, it tricks the brain into thinking that the mouth is okay. And I would listen. So that's a good one. It's not just to keep your hydration up. It's actually plays a slightly psychological trick on the brain to have a cool, wet mouth like that. So, and the third thing I would say is, if you have the opportunity, given the time, to get hold of either hypnotherapy tapes, relaxation tapes, Love Fly episode 44, or any of the other services, including things like Simplify, then they have got some really, really useful things that you can listen to on headphones. So as you're going to the plane, you're going about your business at the airport, you can keep yourself on top of relaxation.
Nice. Okay. So that's great. I like that, actually. So the water one that's a good one. Yeah. Okay. So I really love that. So imagine they do have like 24 hours or 48. What would you then suggest? You said about the podcasts, binging those, which is nice. Thank you for the plug.
Yeah.
Anything
Okay.
else?
Yeah. I think it's a bit, with 48 hours, it's a bit tricky, other than doing the relaxation, the breathing, and listening to podcasts, and possibly I would say get hold of any hypnotapes that you can from any of the audiobook providers. There's some really good ones that I listen to a lot on relaxation, on fear of heights, fear of claustrophobia, and I find them very, very useful and relaxing.
Okay.
There's I don't know if I can plug a competitor. There is a really good one on Simplify that I like. Simplify has got a Spanish sounding lady who's a hypnotherapist, and her recording on Simplify is really good. I enjoy that very much. But I would also say that it depends if you're a newcomer to the group as well. If you're a newcomer, then the chances of getting hold of a book is pretty slim in 48 hours.
Yes.
But if you have one of the kind of the Bible books, the Alan Carr books, then I think dipping into those, picking certain lessons from those books can be very useful indeed.
Yeah, I like his book. It's great. Yeah, I think you can normally get hold of these things like as ebooks you can download, or audiobook quite quickly as well. So these are other options, aren't they?
Yeah. The other thing I would say, to try to give people a bit of confidence, because I can imagine just how difficult it could be for some people, is that the anticipation is worse than actually doing it. You see, I always used to find that I was terrified about going to the airport and walking around the airport and all that. But once I'd got onto the plane, in a very kind of paradoxical way, I actually felt quite relaxed, because you see the staff, you get the aircon, you have the soft music, maybe there's some mood lighting, and once you get into your seat and sit down, I actually, invariably started to think, oh, well, this isn't so bad, actually. It was all the tension building up in having to get to the airport, having to pack your bags or whatever, having to get the transport there in time, and where do I go when I get to the airport? All that stuff is quite stressful anyway. So once you're through all that and you've actually sat down in your seat on the plane, you'll hopefully find that you're quite relaxed anyway. It is designed to make you feel like that anyway.
Yeah,
it does.
you're right. So then, just as a sort of so that's some nice little tips there, and just as sort of as a message of hope, in a nutshell, what have you had to overcome to be able to get to the place now where you can fly mostly okay?
I've had to overcome many decades of severe panic, and I have done it. It's understanding how it works, and practice. Keep going over all of the hypnotherapies, all of the knowledge, all of the skills that you pick up along the way. Use them like a muscle. You have to keep exercising them in order to keep them good and healthy. And I think that once you understand that the pilots are doing their jobs The staff are doing their jobs, the plane is doing its job, fly. And once you begin to trust in that, you'll find that it's a lot easier.
Fantastic. There you go. Jamie, that was really, really helpful. Really appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you very, very much. I'm hoping we'll get to see you again. We must be due a part 2 for your own podcast that was very popular. A lot of people still quote it, so we must be due an update.
I'd love it. I'd love to do another one. Tell you all about going to America last year. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, I'll hold you to that. And thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
No problem, Paul. Anytime. I'm always happy to help. I really enjoy doing this. So just call on me whenever you need. Okay.
Oh, nice. Thanks, mate. Okay. Take care of yourself.
Thanks a lot. Okay, cheers. Paul. See you, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye. So we are continuing this idea now of somebody who's just perhaps found the site, or they're suddenly thinking, crikey, I've got a flight tomorrow. What do I do? And we're casting a wide net. And now we're going to hear from the creator of the flight checklist, Pete Higgins. So, Pete, what should they or shouldn't they do?
Well, they're all things that we do not like doing, but we do these things to get it over with. These are some of the scenarios that I use when I meet people with the fear of flying. When you go to the dentist, there's possible pain, maybe an extraction and fillings. There's a cost. There is no pain when flying in an aircraft. So go for it, get on the aircraft and sit back and enjoy the flight.
Tip 1.
Number 2, in England, and I think in America and some countries, you've got the annual government vehicle test. You take your car into the garage to get the certificate of roadworthiness. Then when you leave it with them, you're wondering, will it pass? What if repairs are needed? How much will it cost? This can be very stressful for some people. When flying, you know that the aircraft are maintained to the highest standards, so there is no worry. Has this aircraft passed its government test? Yes. There is another reason to fly. Just go for it. You know that it's perfectly safe. This is one that's dear to a lot of men's hearts. Conflict. When men go shopping with their wives or partners, we know for men it is stressful, but we still do it to get it over with. If your partner buys something you do not like and say so, you will be in conflict. There is no conflict when flying. If you do not eat the meal that is served up, the cabin crew do not come up and say, "What's wrong with your meal? Why did you not eat it? My mother was up all night preparing this food for you." So go for it. When you fly, there is no conflict. Another scenario, when you visit a doctor or hospital, it's very stressful because you're wondering about the what if scenario. So go for it. Get on the aircraft because there are no what if scenarios when you fly. The flight deck crew and cabin crew take care of everything. Turbulence. We all know that turbulence is not dangerous. For a few, it is uncomfortable, but for many passengers, it's only a minor irritant, especially watching a film or reading a book. So go for it. Get on the aircraft and fly to your dream destination. This one's a good one. I do not like flying. Where does it say on your boarding pass that you have to like it? So you know that it's very safe, so just go for it and fly. This one is dear to a lot of people's hearts. Wanting to cancel the holiday or offload from the aircraft. Think about it. If you do cancel your holiday, the aircraft is still going to go even without you. So while you're back at home regretting your decision, 200 to 300 people will be enjoying their holiday somewhere on our wonderful planet. So go for it and fly. Decorating. This is a good scenario. For many people, they put off as long as possible the thought of redecorating a room. But when they start and get into the flow of things, they take everything in their stride. So when you fly, just take everything in your stride. To finalise it, all the 8 scenarios I've just described of reasons to put things off do not apply when you fly in an aircraft. So just let the dedicated flight deck crew and cabin crew take you in comfort and safety to your dream destination. You can do this. Full stop.
Amazing. Because I thought you would. I thought there's some nice little tips there. So I thought you would talk about your flight checklist and like go through the checklist. But you've been very modest here.
Well, the flight checklist says it all. When you're reading it, I like it because you read the first line, then you're expecting things.
Mm.
When you expect things to happen, you can't freak out on an aeroplane. It's that simple. The checklist has worked wonders for many people, and I'm so pleased about that.
Mm.
When there's turbulence, it's no big deal. The checklist will describe the turbulence, possibly when you just take off and you're climbing through some cloud base, or when approaching your arrival destination and you descend through the cloud, the wings will wobble, a bit of turbulence, but that disappears sometimes when you get below the cloud level. That's all written down, and because you're expecting it, no big deal. And when you think about things to expect with the checklist, soon as the wheels touch the ground, reverse thrust, the wheels will sort of gently kiss the runway. Sometimes it's loud, but it's designed to be loud. No big drama. The reverse thrust comes in, very exciting, as 300, 400, 500 tons of aircraft is brought to a halt by just reversing the airflow. How super is that? That saves on a lot of wear and tear on the tyres and brakes and makes, hopefully, aircraft seats cheaper. I'd like to think it does. So go for it. With the flight checklist, do the things you don't like doing, and if one of them is an aeroplane, just get on it and do it. You can do this. With Love Fly, the world's your oyster. It's so simple. You can't go wrong.
That's like a drop the mic moment, my friend. I think we'll knock it on their head there. That's fantastic. Nice bit of tips, nice and punchy, and some bits there I think that people will resonate with. So thanks a million, Peter. Thanks for all you do for Love Fly and all the Love Flyers. I know you get lots of praise in the group. I don't think you always see it, but we really appreciate what you do. And I know a lot of the nervous flyers have benefited enormously from your checklist. So thank you.
Bye.
So next we have Melissa. And Melissa, you remember, was on a recent podcast talking about her experiences of flying, and you've been recommended. You were on the Gita recommendation list for part 1, and she said, I'm sure Melissa will have some thoughts around things that you can do. So remember the context is, oh crap, I've got a flight tomorrow and I've just found the Love Fly group, or I'm just having some last minute panics. What can I do? And what would you recommend? Welcome back, by the way.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me back, Paul. And thanks to Gita for recommending me. So lots of you know me from the Facebook group, but anyone new listening who has a flight tomorrow don't know who I am, but I've been on the group for like 9 months, I think, preparing for a big flight I've got this summer. So I've done a lot of work and gained a lot of tips from the group. So I'm definitely not cured yet, but I'm doing better than I was. And so this is the advice that I would give to anyone on the group. The first thing is about anticipatory anxiety, which is a thing that I struggle with a lot for weeks before the flight. And I know lots of people on the group do as well, because I see it day in, day out. So that anticipatory anxiety, I've been doing some reading about. And basically, anytime you have that anxiety when you're not in the event, so you're not on the flight, that's all your imagination. So you're actually safe in the moment, but you're living out an imaginary scenario in your head. And that sort of makes you think, if I'm doing this badly now, then what am I going to be like on the day?
Yes.
And however, that anxiety doesn't tell you the truth, and it's in no way a predictor or a warning or a sign about how things are going to go on the day.
Perfect. Love that.
I found that really interesting. There's also the thought in a lot of our heads that we've worried so long that it will somehow keep us safe, but it doesn't. And so I have read that even when a fear is mostly beaten, this anticipation is one of the last things to get rid of. And that's because our brains automatically remember past experiences, and they also like to predict the future, which is like a very human thing. Like animals never live in the future, do they? So And also sometimes anxiety is actually excitement, and it's easy to mix the two up. And it's okay to allow yourself to feel the excitement, and also try to have an anchor thought for when you're at your destination. So something that you can just picture yourself doing on your trip. So
Nice.
what can you do about that is obviously if someone's joining and has a flight tomorrow, they don't have that much time to work on this in depth, but you can just allow these thoughts to come into your mind rather than push them away. So it's okay to have those thoughts. It's okay to recognize that although the anxiety feels physically not nice, it's not necessarily an indicator of how you'll be on the day. These feelings can't hurt you. So they feel like really awful, but they won't actually do you any harm. And the anxiety often comes in waves. So it'll kind of peak and then subside. So I have started basically giving myself lots of positive self-talk and have little mantras in my head. So my favorite one, which I say on the group and others say too, is the thoughts are not facts, and anxiety doesn't mean there's a threat. And I really like that. And I just tell myself that a lot. And then more practical things. So I think before the flight, as much as you can, distract yourself at home by doing nice things. So watch something funny on TV, listen to some music that you like, go out for a walk, try to eat as well as you can, because if you don't eat, it sort of amplifies how your body feels not good. And also rest as much as you can. And for me, I find that more recently I've tried to avoid alcohol in the time before the flight because that exacerbates my anxiety and also makes me sleep worse. So I also keep a little notebook of like tips that I've got from the group or notes from the podcast. I also take screenshots and have little inspirational quotes in this album on my phone. And you can also try out like the Headspace app, but I appreciate if you haven't got much time. That's kind of a longer process. For me, I think being as prepared as you can for the trip. So the packing, because that stresses me out, try to do that as far in advance as you can and sort out your house or whatever else you have to do. Book an airport hotel the night before if you have a morning flight, because then you don't have all that rushing around in the morning, trying to get your house in order. For me, I've got to drop my dog off somewhere and it's all just a big palaver. And I've got 2 kids to sort out as well. So just get to the airport hotel and think, okay, I'm here now. I've got my luggage and I'm just in it now.
Nice.
Also book it. Some people say book an airport lounge, just so you've got maybe a quieter place to go at the airport. You can kind of look at the route that your flight might normally take on Flight Radar, just to familiarize yourself with that if it helps. And this is a good thing that I think will help a lot of people. And I read this in a book, but it's prepare a self-soothing toolkit. So it's like basically like an emotional rescue toolkit. And you put things in there that will engage all of your senses. So I really like the noise cancelling headphones, and I know a lot of other people do. And I like a playlist with music that just makes you happy. And again, obviously you can listen to your podcasts or your audiobooks. Like I struggle to read an actual book, but an audiobook is probably a bit easier. A weighted eye mask, just if you want to like block out any sights. Make yourself as comfy as possible. So your travel pillow and your comfy clothes. And then I've also read like take something that smells nice that you're familiar with. So people say lavender. I personally like vanilla. Bottle of water because your mouth gets dry when you're anxious. Rescue Remedy, which is like a spray herbal thing, which I actually used on my last flight, just to I don't even know what it did, but the taste was like really bad. So it's almost like by having a bad taste. Or you can also have mints, but also elastic band on the wrist, to ping. Read that. You can get like fidget rings or fidget jewelry, magazines to flick through, games on your phone. So I've got solitaire because that's quite mindless. I can't do anything too difficult, so it just has to be something really brainless. And then just take a notepad as well if you want to jot anything down. And then
This is a great list, Melissa. I mean, you're just like smashing them out. That's brilliant.
Preparing this.
This is gold.
Then we get to the day of the flight.
Oh, wow. Yeah, great.
Obviously, you've got your toolkit. And then, so in the morning, try to eat, like I've said, try to drink something like a herbal tea or something that comforts you. And then when you get to the airport, try to stay in the moment, I think, as much as you can, because I think once your thoughts start spiraling, it's very hard to come back from. And you just get in that absolute, like, can't think straight. You know, it's like the whole forebrain, keeping that engaged. So I think every step of the way, just kind of look around, observe people, take sort of factual notes in your head, like about, I don't know, someone's got a nice jumper, or look at that person's hair, or I don't know, it's just keeping you in the moment, really. And then once you get on the plane, I don't like the takeoff at all. That's my worst bit. So this is just what I did last time, but I put the headphones on. You tap your middle finger very quickly, which was on one of your podcasts with Rob Bohr, who I really like that one. And he also said about observing the people on the plane and just making sure you're in that environment. Just think of it as like a room, or rather than know that you're miles up in the air going fast, just kind of go, I'm just in this room with these people, what they're doing, you know.
Love that.
And also people have said you could set like a watch or something for 5 minutes, because by that point you've got through like the sort of worst bit of the takeoff. So I may do that, but also I may video the takeoff, which also distracts you a bit.
Yeah,
I've done last time. And then I have my little mantra on the plane, which is let go. That's my other favorite one. And I say it's okay to let go of the control.
Yes.
And everything like that. And it's okay to trust these people, like how highly trained they are.
Mm.
A day at the office for them.
That's right.
And most of the pilots that you come across absolutely love their job, and it's a huge passion for them, and they've got their own families. Again, the breathing, you want to regulate that if you can. So the long, slow out breaths. You can kind of obviously use Pete Higgins' checklist, or identify the various noises from things you've learned. So for me, the noise abatement was a huge thing. If I learned that 25 years ago, that would have helped me an awful lot.
Yeah.
And again, break up your time into small manageable chunks, I think. So I'm going to have like a little itinerary with activities I could do and tick them off. And it might just be like very small goals, like listen to one song if you're struggling, or read one page of a magazine, or have a walk around, chat to a member of the crew if you want to, play a game on your phone, things like that. So just try to not imagine, like for me, the whole 9 hours, like just imagine the next 10 minutes or something. Because I feel like I could probably do a short flight quite easily, but I'm still struggling with the thought of the long one, like keeping your mind calm for that time. And I used to watch the flight map for the whole entire 9 hours, but it's like it makes you so much worse. So I'm gonna try not to do that. I'm gonna check it. I'm gonna allow myself to check in every now and then.
Just check you're still flying, you know.
Yeah, but not always have it on, because that's all I do, and it's just I don't know, just not nice. And so that's it, really. The only other thing I was going to say was, when you're on your trip, try to keep doing a bit of work, because I think a lot of people struggle more with the thought of coming home, myself included, maybe because you don't have that excitement about the holiday. So I'm going to keep listening to podcasts while I'm there, and keep posting on the group. And then the other thing I'm going to do is plan a nice activity for like the weekend after I get home. So I've already said to my friends, we need to organize like a meal out, and that's going to be something I can focus on if I'm worried on the plane. I think I'm going out with my friends in 3 days' time, and I'm going to tell them all about my holiday. And just, I don't know, it allows you to like look to the future, which I think you need to do, because you get just, otherwise you just sort of spiral. And yeah, that's all my tips.
Melissa, fantastic. That was a great list that you rattled through there. And I like the fact that you were thinking about before, during, and even when you get there, thinking about like what you need to do to keep, because no one else has said that. So that's really helpful because you are there and you also have the opportunity to then dwell on it because you've got another return flight, haven't you?
Exactly.
Very good. Thank you very much. That was excellent. And nice to see you again.
I hope it helps some people.
We are following on from Geeta's suggestion of what can you do to help people. You got 24 hours, or I've just found the group, or I'm having a last minute panic. Maybe I've got 24, 48 hours. I haven't done anything. Maybe I've done loads of things, but it's all lastminute.com, which is quite a common thing to come up in the group. So, Susan, what do you reckon?
Hi, Paul. That's a great one, isn't it? I know we have lots of people come into the group like that, don't we?
Yeah.
You know, anywhere from 7 days to, as you said, tomorrow in a bit of a fluster.
And it can be just for no fault of their own. They just literally found it, last minute, haven't they?
Yes. Or also, we all do that a little bit, don't we? When we don't want to do something or we're scared, you just kind of put it somewhere in the back of your mind until you can't. It's
yes.
There's no choice.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're at that stage. So I guess there's a couple of things when we're, you're sort of in the eye of the storm then, aren't you? So I think the first thing is to focus on the practicalities, get all the practicalities sorted out, everything that might reduce your stress in a very practical sense. So whether that's, booking taxis, checking in, all those kind of things, and getting yourself organised for the flight. So making sure you've got entertainment, everything ready for the flight. So I think it's really important at that point, this focus on practicalities. And alongside that, there's a couple of things I'd suggest. So one of them is that you go into a sort of mode of what's the next thing I need to do? So you literally take it one step at a time. So in order to, what tends to happen is your mind immediately always goes to the flight. So in order to try and sort of keep that sense of calm a little bit, I would suggest that you're thinking, okay, what's the next thing I need to do? I'm just going to start to get some clothes together to pack my case or whatever it is. So just focusing on small practical tasks, and you're just thinking of what's the next thing I need to do in order to try and stop your mind running forward to that flight. And this also links in with the practicalities. If you know you've got all the practicalities sorted out, then there's nothing else to think about at the flight. Now you're just going through the steps of getting ready.
Yeah.
So alongside that then is about how do you manage your mind? How do you stop yourself thinking ahead all the time? So one of them is about this kind of present focus, just focusing on a small manageable task and working through in that way. And then the next thing is when managing your mind, so we could use a nice little strategy that in CBT we call worry postponement. So this is based a little bit on a similar idea. For example, if you give chocolate up for Lent, much easier to say, I'm giving it up for a couple of weeks or a month or whatever it is, rather than I'm never going to eat chocolate again. That feels completely unmanageable.
I think that's illegal actually as well.
Is it?
Yeah, yes. in many countries.
So instead of that, we're going to use that same sort of strategy with our minds. So when you notice those worries popping into your mind, which inevitably they will do, all those what if type questions that come up, what I'm going to suggest you do is notice it. So first of all, you're going to notice the worry and just say, oh, I notice that I'm worrying about the flight again. And then you're going to remind yourself that it's not helpful. I've got all the practicalities sorted, not helpful for me to be worrying about that right now. So what I'm going to do is postpone the worry till later. So in your mind, you're putting the worry aside and postponing it for a later time. Now, if you've got sort of, say the flight's tomorrow, we're in the afternoon now, aren't we, Paul? If your flight's tomorrow, while you're working today, just getting all the last bits ready for the flight, if a worry pops up, you might say to yourself, oh, I've noticed I'm starting to worry. not going to, there's no help in worrying about that right now. I'll postpone that till later. And you might give yourself a worry time later. So perhaps about 6 o'clock in the evening, not too late because you don't want to be taking it to bed. But at that point, you might allow yourself just 10 minutes of worry. And in that 10 minutes, you can worry as much as you like for 10 minutes. But after that, we go back into postponing it again. And when you're on the eve of the flight, what you can then do is postpone it until after the flight. So, for example, if you've got a flight tomorrow, first thing in the morning and you'll have landed at night, after you've done your worry time tonight, you can start telling yourself, same thing, I've noticed I'm worrying, not helpful to think about it right now. I'll postpone it till 10 o'clock tomorrow evening. So you're tricking your mind into letting it go until after the flight's done.
And that sounds amazing. How does that work then? It just does.
So a little bit like I said at the beginning, it's about our minds we have to be quite gentle with our minds. So if we try to not think about anything at all, it makes us think about it more. The other alternative is we get caught up in this sort of worry spiral or worry cycle, where one worry leads to another, and before you know where you are, it's it feels completely out of control. Where we're trying to take a slightly more gentle approach, where we're acknowledging it, kind of saying to them, I know I'm worried, that's okay, but I just don't need to do the worry bit, and I can do it later. So it's just having a slightly more gentle approach with your mind, that sometimes our minds manage a little bit better.
I like that. I have done a version of this technique, but I don't know why it worked. And I just thought maybe you would know.
Did you find that it did work with you?
Yeah, I have used it before. I have thought, I'll put all my worry, I'll plan it. Like, so 6 o'clock, I'm going to worry, I'm going to do all my panicking at 6. And until then, I'm not going to, and for some, I don't know why it works, but it seems to. Yeah, doesn't mean you stop thinking about it, but it just, I don't know, dilutes it a bit.
Yeah, I suppose it's just trying to, rather than worrying for 12 hours in the day, you're trying to just worry for 10 minutes. So I think that's quite reassuring for our minds. I know it's going on, but we're just not going to spend the whole day panicking about it. We'll do 10 minutes.
Very cool. Like that. Thank you very much. Yeah, right. Brilliant. Thank you, Sue.
Worries. Thank you. Bye, Paul.
So, to our next guest, Debbie Robotham, who is helping people all over Love Fly. You keep popping up all the time, doing an amazing job. And because you're such a prolific helper, I thought we'd ask you, and had your own journey of beating your fear as well. So what would you suggest?
I think, firstly, listen to episode 44 or Headspace or something like that. Get your breathing under control. You can't do anything until you're in a calmer place. And then you can take on board other information. But firstly, get yourself calm, listen to something like yourself, episode 44, Headspace, anything like that, and just calm yourself down, get your breathing, and then you can move on. Okay,
so that's great. Tip number 1, and because not everyone is able to do that. So, but I do agree. I think breathing is key. And it helps you to then start to be able to rationalize and take on other things, because if you're breathing and your state of mind is all over the place, there's no chance of reading anything or looking at anything on YouTube.
No. Or even listening to another podcast. You're in too much of a panic state. You've just got to slowly calm down and be able to rationalize.
Okay, all right, that's brilliant. So that's your start. So he says, trying to squeeze as much as possible out of you. What next would you suggest?
The famous Pete Higgins checklist.
Why was that helpful for you then?
It's just got everything that happens. You tick it off, and it happens exactly like it does in the list. You take off. You hear all the noises. You feel the dip, and it's all perfectly normal, and each flight is exactly the same. So it is absolute, it's brilliant, and I've said that to so many people that, you know, have been due to fly, and just download it, tick it off, gives you some focus as well. It's just something else. You're not thinking about anything else because you're focusing on the list.
That's right. No, I agree. And for those who haven't found it, it's in the files section of
Yep.
the Love Fly private Facebook group, so you can download it there and get it. So that's great. Yeah, I agree with that. That's a good tip. What else you got?
What else have I got?
Yeah.
Remember, the pilots and crew are human, and they want to get home to their families as well. It's such a simple thing, but I do think you forget, you know. And it was one of the big ones for me. I think somebody said it in the podcast last week.
Yes.
And it just, it really does. They want to get home. They want to see their families, you know. Whereas Pete says they want to go to Tesco's and mow the lawn, and, you know, it is such a simple thing, but it's true. You know, they're human, and they're not going to do anything that puts themselves in danger.
No, that's very true. I think that's a good reminder as well. And a few people have found that one to be helpful. So I'm glad that's one you brought up. Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, okay. So we've got the breathing, we've got the checklist, we've got remember the pilots are humans and the crew are human. How many more you got?
How many more have I got? A big one. Do not check the weather or turbulence apps.
What is that then?
They're rubbish. That's the pilot's job. And anybody else, all the ground crew, they're looking after that. They're being paid a lot of money to do that. Let them do it. We don't understand it. We can't begin to decipher everything that's going on up in the air. Let them do it. If it's not safe, they will not fly. They will find another route or just will not go. So, you know, it's simple as that. You know, when people say, "Oh, I've checked the turbulence app," don't.
Yes, I agree. Thank you. Thank you for saying that one. Okay, got any more?
No, nothing. I honestly think your anxiety is probably worse than the flight itself. You know, I think you've said it times before. It's facts, not thoughts, and it goes back to getting your breathing under control. If you're in a state of panic, or your thoughts spiral out of control, and you can't remember the facts. You know, if somebody has only just joined Love Fly, then they perhaps want to listen to all the podcasts and, you know, learn what I've learned. But you need to get that, you know, it's remember facts, not thoughts.
Yeah, that's good. Yes, because it's very easy to sort of, when these things are rattling around your head, to think, oh, it must mean something, you know, because particularly just before a flight, they always spike a bit anyway, don't they?
Exactly. And I think it's a bit like rituals as well. You know, you hold on to it, and it's you get those thoughts and you hold on to them. So it's learning to let your thoughts go and remember the facts.
So thank you. That's great. So just to sort of give a glimpse of hope in a potted history, one sentence type thing, what was your situation and where are you now in terms of the fear?
Used to love flying, had children, hated flying, used to take medication, alcohol, got myself in a right state, did Virgin fearofflying course, got slightly better, had a wobble, came back, found Love Fly, and now I fly very happily. Thank you very much.
You know, nothing at all now?
No, absolutely nothing.
And Debbie, thank you again for all the help that you give secretly in the Love Fly group. And I know that you've even met up with a couple of people, at least that's what I know of. Anyway, there could be others that come out the woodwork, but
no, I'm not some secret air stalker.
No, you know. But if you want to fly with Debbie, contact. No, so you've been away. I know you've done a few flights with people, so thanks ever so much. And you are amazing.
Mauritius, if somebody fancies Mauritius, I'm more than happy to tag along.
I tell you what, you're all heart.
I know.
What a sacrifice you're willing to make.
Give.
Yeah, so if everybody's nervous about going to Mauritius, then Debbie will happily companion you. Debbie, thanks a million, mate. That was absolutely brilliant. And thank you again for all that you do. And great to see you again.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Paul.
Take care. So continuing with the theme of, I thought we'd get 3 other lovely humans to contribute. So we've got Sarah Fowler, who's a flight service manager, and you would have come across her in the Love Fly Facebook group, which is also on the 30-day program. And we've got Captain Steve here, who's like the local hero, and also John Bond, who you'll see in the Facebook group all the frigging time and putting the rest of us to shame. So, wisdom, what do you reckon? Who wants to go first?
Shall I start? I'll start. And I think the best thing to start with is try and be prepared as best you can in terms of the getting to the airport. Figure out how you get into the airport, factor in any delays, because I think if you make it as smooth as possible, so you're not worrying about that. Know what terminal you're going from, how long it takes to get from sort of A to B. Like Heathrow's massive, so you want to leave lots and lots of time so that you're not rushing, because I think that just adds to the anxiety. That's going to add to everything. But if you know exactly, what to do if plan A goes wrong, what's your plan B of getting to the airport? What terminal am I at? Have all your documents ready. Be as organised on that. That's the stuff that you can control. If you can be as organised as you can with that side of it, and know the layout as best you can of the airport. So how long is it going to take from check-in to the gate, for example, through security? What's going to happen at security? Well, I know majority of countries, there's the liquid rule. So make sure that all your liquids are in your clear plastic bag. So again, you're a step ahead. You haven't got to think about anything when you're there, and you can just kind of concentrate on yourself and keeping yourself as calm as possible, because you're in control of everything else. You've organised it. No surprises. And also expect the unexpected, expect the queues, and don't worry about them. Queues, flip it around and think, it's because they're doing their job properly and thoroughly, and that's really good. That's what we want, rather than getting annoyed with them and thinking, it's part of the process. And perhaps have a plan as well. What am I going to do? So you've arrived really early. Shall I have breakfast? If you feel like you can eat, maybe go and view the planes, find a nice area to sit and read, do something that you really enjoy, or maybe listen to one of the podcasts. I think, is it 44 that comes up quite often with the relaxation? So perhaps factor in one of those, maybe go to the gate early so you can have a quiet moment in a corner with a podcast. Yeah, being prepared as best you can. And I think on a crew side of things, speak to it as soon as you get on, go and find your seat, and then maybe go and find the nearest crew member, explain that you're not a great flyer, I'm sat over there, and just introduce yourself, and then they know where you are and they can reassure you as best as possible as well. And then you're getting to know them on a human level as well, and realise that, it sort of helps put it all in perspective that they're human as well, and they'll do everything they can to make sure that you're as relaxed and answer any questions that you've got. So any questions you've got, speak to the crew. Nice. Thanks, Sarah. Do you breathe through your ears? That was amazing. It's like fantastic. Just off the top of my head, just thought of that. I probably got bored if you let me go.
That was good.
Or Pete's checklist, always print that off. I think that seems to come up as being really invaluable. So again, you know what's coming, all the noises and stuff. You're being prepared. You've been and you're staying in control in your own way.
Awesome. Right, all right then. So Captain Steve, what would you like?
Beat that.
Beat that.
Follow that one. God, brilliant. That's amazing. Whilst we're on the human level of things, exactly what Sarah said. So always remember as well that the crew are humans, every single one of them. And they all have amazing lives outside of work, and they wouldn't jeopardize this for anything. So it's not a scientific experiment. You're not alone going to the airport and getting on the aeroplane. And but the difference is the crew, obviously, they're not fearing anything, and it's very routine for them. But they have lives, and they love doing their job, love going around the world. But remember, they all have home lives, loved ones, animals, etc., and they wouldn't jeopardize it for anything. So rest assured that everybody that's working on that aeroplane has got your best interests at heart, because ultimately they're looking after themselves. Also be rest assured that as you're sitting in the airport or the gate, as Sarah said, that everything is being done to prepare that aeroplane, and there's no stone left unturned. So whilst you're in queues, possibly the crew have already met and they're doing all their pre-flight planning, etc., etc. And the aeroplane has obviously been inspected by the engineers, etc., etc. And know that it's all routine, and this happens day in, day out for every single aeroplane departure. So no aeroplane gets any special treatment more than others. And there's 100,000 takeoffs and landings every single day around the world. 100,000, which is incredible, really, if you think about. And that just shows you how safe it actually is.
Yeah. Okay. So you raised the bar.
I tried that breathing. I tried the breathing through the ears, but I had to stop.
I think as well.
Oh, what? There's more. Go on then.
There's a little bit more. A little bit more advice is, please, if you can, try and stay off the apps, because the weather apps, the turbulence apps, it just try and avoid them, because if it's safe to fly, you'll fly. If it's not safe because of the weather, etc., you won't fly. Simple as that. So trust the experts. We know what we're doing. Don't, because I couldn't read half the weather maps, the turbulence maps. They don't mean anything. And most of the time when Steve tells me there's turbulence in 3 hours, there may well not be. So I'll take that with a pinch of salt as well, because it's nature, isn't it? So try and log off. Just concentrate on the fact that if it's safe to fly, you'll be flying. If it's not, it'll get cancelled. It's as simple as that. So just trust us experts. We know what we're doing, and that's why it's so safe.
Actually, brilliant, Sarah. I'd like to touch on that when we're talking about, we do know when it's going to be rough during the flight. And as Sarah says, the meteorologists don't always get it right. Hello, Michael Fish, famous Michael. But we do have a rough idea of whether it's going to be, but that doesn't stop us going. If it's going to be rough en route, as we've said on many podcasts before, if there's a tailwind, but it's really rough air, we will go looking for that tailwind, because obviously it gets us there quicker. It doesn't matter to us how rough it is. It's obviously just uncomfortable for you, but it's not obviously unsafe. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing it. But even the fact, we know there's pockets of air or areas of, it doesn't stop the flight going. We just can expect it. And that's it. And it's just routine to us. It doesn't affect us in any way, shape or form. We just know that it's going to be, and that's more or less for when to put the seatbelts on, not to, the flight won't do a 180 and go back out of the turbulence. It will carry on through it. All quite normal.
Real. Thank you. You two finished now?
Hang on.
Well then, John, give us some up wisdom. Get in before Sarah talks again.
Now,
the first thing that I'm thinking is I wish I'd gone first, because all the information. But
you could have been in the garden with a beard by now.
Exactly. Yeah, it's but it is very, very true that when I'm on the Facebook page, we get many people who say, I am flying in an hour. Can you help me? Right. And they then follow up with, and I've checked the weather, and the place where I'm going, it's raining now. And they don't connect the fact that where they're going is 9 hours away from where they are. And it's not going to be raining there anyway. And even if it was, it doesn't matter. So what I've been saying to people is, you need to do your job, right? So your job as a passenger is to get to the airport on time, wear comfy clothes. In my case, make sure you've got pants on, right? And then from there, snacks, entertainment, right? Have a good attitude. So the attitude is, something may go wrong, like I may lose something, I may get delayed, something may happen, but I'm going on an adventure. So if I get there half an hour later, who cares, right? And also don't miss the opportunity of things not going to plan. Because very often if things don't go to plan,
say that again, what?
Never miss the opportunity that you're given when things don't go to plan. Because you could quite literally be delayed for an hour, and in an hour start chatting to someone and make a friend for life, right? Or whatever, find out that they're going to the same place and they're actually going to an art gallery and they know the owner of the art gallery and they invite you and you end up going to the art gallery, right? There's lots of positive things that can happen, but we tend to always look at I'm not getting what I want exactly how I want it, so that's bad. And very often, when you don't get something exactly the way you want it, it's actually giving you an opportunity to get something better. So in relation to the apps and what Sarah said, completely right. I tell everybody, don't check the weather, don't look at turbulence, right? As I said previously, I have no idea what plane I'm getting on, right? It doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter in the slightest, because the plane is certified to fly. The people flying it are certified to fly. Everyone's passed everything. If the weather is too bad for it to fly, it won't fly. So I have no control, but I don't need any control, because I'm paying other people to be in control. And I think that's the piece, is they think, well, I'm paying for my seat and there's a pilot and the person who's giving me my chicken dinner. But they don't realize in the background, there's all the security people, there's all the people who check you in on the ground, there's all the people who are planning the routes, the people who are looking at the weather, who are massively qualified. And yet, here's me with my first aid certificate going, well, I'm going to just look at the weather and see what's going to happen. I have no chance, right? So stay in your lane, control what you can control, and take everything as an opportunity to enjoy yourself.
Hey, did you deliver, Sarah?
He's beat us all now. That was brilliant. It was a great way of wording it and just putting it all
together.
It's
true, isn't it? If we walked into the bank or someone else's department, you wouldn't expect us, take over their, or question their authority or qualifications. You're absolutely right, John.
So it's trusting in the people who are in the positions to do the job and relying on them, that they're qualified, they know what they're doing, they're certified, there's regulations to ensure that they're qualified, and then focus on what you can do.
Yeah,
go on, say it.
That's it. Winner.
Minute, yeah. The big thing about turning things around as well, like if you've got a delay and look at it in a different perspective, because sometimes it's so true. You often start talking to someone or something, or they, like you mentioned about them sort of owning something. It could be the way around. The person you're talking to, you could have helped them in some way or form, and you think, oh, if that hadn't have happened, then I wouldn't have met that. And they would.
Sarah, don't be taken in by him. He's not that likable. All right.
I'm very annoying, because I speak to everyone all the time, and I have a very strange sense of humor. So 9 times out of 10, I always think I'm the funniest person I know, and nobody else does. Right? That's the disconnect. That's the problem. Right? So.
But it's looking at things in a different perspective, and it's so true when you look back on things and think, oh, that's so annoying, I missed that train, or that got cancelled, then realise that actually it's probably for the best, or something good came out of it, or it just all worked out in the end. But you look at things differently rather than getting worked up.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much for the collective wisdom. That's very helpful.
We pulled it out the bag.
Pulled it out. I mean, you just smashed it out of the park. Honestly, all of you. You just. It's an honour to know you. It is. I'm humbled.
Humbled.
My life is better because of you. Yeah. Well, thank you for listening to that. I hope you found something useful there. A couple of tips. And thank you to all our amazing speakers for sharing their time and their wisdom. Take care. Thank you for listening to the Love Fly podcast. I hope you found it useful. Now, as always, if you need any extra help, please join our Love Fly Facebook group. You can also follow us on Instagram at Love Fly Help. And also, if you go to our website, which is lovefly.co.uk/shop, you can see other ways that you can get some help. Thanks for listening.